The first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the research station's weathered exterior. Inside, a young scientist adjusted her protective gear, her hands trembling slightly despite her best efforts to appear calm. The past few weeks had been a blur of intense preparation, countless simulations, and an overwhelming sense that everything was about to change. The station sat perched on the edge of a desolate planetary landscape, a testament to human resilience in the face of seemingly impossible challenges. Surrounding the complex was a terrain so harsh that most would have considered it uninhabitable: jagged rock formations, toxic atmospheric conditions, and temperature fluctuations that could kill an unprotected organism within minutes. She remembered the briefings, the skeptical looks from senior researchers who had doubted the possibility of human adaptation. They had laughed when she first proposed the experimental survival program. "Humans aren't built for extreme environments," they'd say, shaking their heads. But she knew something they didn't: the incredible adaptability that ran through human veins. The mission was simple yet profound: prove that humanity could survive and thrive in conditions that would obliterate most known life forms. It wasn't just a scientific experiment, it was a statement about the indomitable human spirit. Her team had been carefully selected, not just for their scientific expertise, but for their mental fortitude. Each member represented a different aspect of human potential: raw determination, intellectual brilliance, emotional resilience. They were more than just researchers, they were living proof of humanity's extraordinary capacity to overcome. As she checked the final seal on her environmental suit, a holographic display flickered to life. The data streams showed the current planetary conditions: atmospheric pressure dropping, radiation levels spiking, temperature plummeting to -150 degrees Celsius. Any other species would have been instantaneously destroyed. But not humans. The first test subject was ready, a volunteer who had undergone months of specialized training and genetic conditioning. Unlike traditional astronauts or explorers, this individual represented a new frontier of human potential. Modified, prepared, but fundamentally human. Outside, the wind howled with a fury that would have silenced any other form of life. But inside the station, there was only calm determination. Years of research, decades of scientific advancement, and centuries of human evolution had led to this moment. The scientist took a deep breath. Today wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology or its intellect, but in its unbreakable will to push beyond known limitations. Preparation complete, she spoke into her communication device, her voice steady. Initial exposure sequence beginning in 3, 2, 1. The world watched and waited, unaware that they were about to witness something that would redefine everything they understood about human potential. No one was laughing now. The control room hummed with a nervous energy that seemed to vibrate through every electronic circuit and human nerve. Ancient monitoring systems, retrofitted with cutting-edge technology, displayed a mosaic of data points that told a story far more complex than simple numbers could convey. Deep in the planetary research complex, generations of preparation had led to this moment. It wasn't just about sending a person into an impossible environment, it was about understanding the very limits of human potential. The current team was the culmination of a decades-long project that had its roots in the most unlikely of places. 50 years earlier, a small group of geneticists, environmental researchers, and evolutionary biologists had begun a radical research initiative. They discovered something extraordinary about human adaptability that most of the scientific community had overlooked. Humans weren't just survivors, they were living, breathing miracles of adaptation. The preliminary research had started with an unexpected breakthrough. During a routine study of extreme environment workers, deep-sea welders, Arctic researchers, volcanic zone geologists, they'd noticed something remarkable. These individuals weren't just trained to survive, their bodies were subtly changing, developing microadaptations that defied conventional understanding of human physiology. A geneticist named Dr. Yara Chen had been the first to document these changes. Her groundbreaking research showed that human DNA wasn't the static blueprint everyone believed it to be. It was dynamic, responsive, capable of making minute adjustments in response to environmental stress. What most scientists saw as genetic stability, she recognized as an incredible survival mechanism. The current test subject represented the pinnacle of this research. Years of careful genetic modification, environmental conditioning, and advanced training had prepared this individual for a challenge that would have been impossible just a decade ago. But it wasn't about creating a superhuman, it was about unlocking the potential that had always existed within human genetics. Inside the planetary containment chamber, the test subject moved with a deliberate, calculated precision. Every movement was a testament to years of preparation, muscles conditioned to respond to extreme stress, neural pathways optimized for split-second decision-making, respiratory and circulatory systems modified to function under conditions that would collapse an ordinary human body. The planetary environment outside was nothing short of apocalyptic. Winds carrying microscopic shards of crystallized rock swept across a landscape that looked more like the surface of a nightmare than a planet. Radiation levels fluctuated in patterns that would scramble most electronic equipment, and human cells, within moments. But this was different. This was a test of human potential that went beyond anything previously imagined. The research team watched with a mixture of scientific detachment and barely contained excitement. Decades of work, billions in funding, countless sleepless nights, all converging on this single moment. The global scientific community had been skeptical, even dismissive. Humans can't survive there, they'd said. It's impossible. Impossible. A word that had always been like a challenge to human innovation. The communication systems crackled to life. Initial exposure parameters stable, came the calm voice of the test subject. No fear, no hesitation, just pure, focused determination. Commencing primary environmental interaction sequence. Outside, the planet seemed to rage against this intrusion. Storms of silicon-based particles swept across rocky plains. Temperatures plummeted and spiked with violent unpredictability. Radiation levels would have killed most known life forms in seconds. But humans had never been like most known life forms. In the control room, a senior researcher leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the data streams. Decades of research had led to this moment, a culmination of human curiosity, determination, and an unbreakable spirit of exploration. They were about to prove that the word impossible was nothing more than a temporary limitation waiting to be shattered. The test had begun. The world beyond the research station was a canvas of unforgiving complexity. Generations of technological advancement had brought humanity to this moment, but the roots of their current mission stretched far deeper than any recent scientific breakthrough. In a small archive room, tucked away from the main research areas, a collection of forgotten journals told a different story. These weren't scientific documents, but personal accounts of human survival that predated the current mission by decades. Each journal represented a testament to human endurance, stories of individuals who had survived scenarios that should have been impossible. One particular journal caught the attention of a young researcher who had been reviewing historical survival accounts. It belonged to a mountaineer who had survived a catastrophic expedition in the most inhospitable region of the Himalayan mountain range. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded, but the story burned with an intensity that spoke to something fundamental about human nature. The mountaineer had been trapped for weeks in a region where temperatures dropped to impossible lows, where oxygen was so thin that breathing became a conscious act of willpower. Most would have given up, succumbed to the harsh environment. But this individual had not just survived, they had adapted. Detailed notes described how the body changed. How metabolism shifted, how blood flow adjusted, how the mind remained clear and focused even when every physical indicator suggested total system failure. It was more than just survival, it was a profound demonstration of human potential. This journal, and dozens like it, had become critical research material for the current mission. They weren't just historical documents, they were blueprints of human adaptability. Back in the main research facility, the test subject was now fully exposed to the planetary environment. Monitoring systems displayed a complex web of biological data, heart rate, neural activity, cellular response, genetic markers. Each second brought new information that challenged everything previously known about human limits. The planetary environment was brutal beyond description. Winds carried microscopic crystalline particles that could slice through most protective materials. Radiation levels fluctuated in patterns that would typically destroy organic matter within moments. Temperature variations could shift by hundreds of degrees in seconds. But the human body was responding. Not just surviving, but actively engaging with the environment. Cellular reconstruction happened at an accelerated rate. Genetic markers that had been dormant for generations suddenly activated. It was as if the human body was having a conversation with the hostile environment, learning its language, finding ways to coexist where no life should exist. In the control room, senior researchers watched with a mixture of scientific fascination and something close to reverence. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. This was a demonstration of the most powerful force in the known universe, human potential. Adaptive response beginning, came the calm voice through the communication system. No fear, no tension, just pure, focused observation. Years of training had prepared the test subject for this moment, but nothing could have fully anticipated what was about to unfold. The planetary storms intensified. Radiation levels spiked. Any conventional life form would have been obliterated instantly. But humans had never been conventional. A senior geneticist leaned closer to the monitoring systems, her hands trembling slightly. Decades of research, countless failures, moments of doubt, all of it had led to this precise moment. They were witnessing something unprecedented, the human body rewriting the rules of biological survival in real time. Outside, the planet seemed to rage. Inside, human determination remained unbroken. The test continued. And with each passing moment, the definition of what was possible was being rewritten. The story of human adaptation wasn't born in a high-tech research facility, but in the most unexpected of places. Thousands of kilometers away from the current planetary mission, an old research center housed archives that told a different kind of survival story. Tucked away in a climate-controlled vault were medical records from a remote community that had survived in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Nestled between razor-sharp mountain ranges and toxic mineral-rich valleys, this isolated group had developed unique biological adaptations that had puzzled researchers for decades. The community's origin traced back to a group of settlers who had been effectively abandoned decades ago. Geological instability and economic collapse had left them in a region so harsh that most believed no long-term human settlement was possible. But they hadn't just survived, they had thrived. Medical examinations revealed extraordinary changes. Their respiratory systems had adapted to process air with minimal oxygen. Hemoglobin structures showed unique mutations that allowed more efficient oxygen transportation. Bone density and muscle composition had transformed in ways that defied previous understanding of human physiology. What made their story truly remarkable was how these adaptations had occurred naturally, without any genetic engineering or technological intervention. It was pure human resilience, the body's incredible ability to modify itself in response to extreme environmental challenges. One particular case stood out in the archives. A community elder who had lived her entire life in this harsh environment demonstrated biological characteristics that seemed impossible. Her lungs had developed microscopic adaptations that allowed more efficient gas exchange. Blood cell structures showed mutations that protected against high-altitude radiation and extreme temperature variations. The elder's life story was a testament to human survival. Born during a particularly harsh winter when resources were scarce, she had not just survived but become a pillar of her community. Her body had literally reshaped itself to meet the challenges of her environment. Research teams had spent years studying this community, trying to understand the mechanisms behind their extraordinary adaptations. It wasn't about creating superhuman beings, it was about understanding the incredible potential that lay dormant within human genetics. Back at the Planetary Research Station, this historical research provided critical context for the current mission. The test subject wasn't just a product of advanced scientific modification. They were the next step in a long line of human adaptation that stretched back generations. The planetary environment continued its relentless assault. Radiation levels that would obliterate most known life forms seemed to wash over the test subject like water. Temperatures that should have caused immediate cellular destruction were being processed, managed, transformed. Inside the monitoring room, a holographic display showed a complex network of biological responses. It wasn't just survival, it was a profound conversation between human biology and an environment designed to destroy. Cellular restructuring entering secondary phase, came the calm voice through the communication system. Each word was measured, controlled, devoid of any hint of the extraordinary process occurring within the test subject's body. The research team exchanged glances. Years of preparation, decades of research, generations of understanding human potential, all converging on this single moment. They were witnessing something beyond scientific breakthrough. They were seeing the next chapter of human evolution unfold in real time. Outside, the planet continued its violent dance of destruction. Inside, human potential was writing a new definition of survival. The test continued. And with each passing moment, the impossible became merely a challenge waiting to be overcome. The world had forgotten about the forgotten archives, collections of research that predated modern technology by decades. Deep within a subterranean research facility, preserved not by choice but by accident, lay a series of journals that would rewrite everything known about human potential. These weren't scientific documents in the traditional sense. They were survival logs from expeditions that should have ended in total failure. Accounts of individuals who had survived environments that defied all logical understanding of human limitations. One particular journal caught the attention of the current research team. It belonged to an explorer who had been part of a classified expedition to a region so toxic, so environmentally hostile, that it had been marked as permanently uninhabitable. The journal detailed a journey that should have been a suicide mission. The explorer described how the human body began to change almost immediately upon exposure to the extreme environment. It wasn't a gradual adaptation, but a rapid, almost instantaneous response. Cellular structures seemed to reconfigure themselves. Metabolic processes shifted with a speed that challenged everything known about biological systems. What made the account truly extraordinary was the level of detail. The explorer wasn't just a passive observer but an active participant in understanding their own biological transformation. Detailed sketches documented changes in skin texture, microscopic alterations in cellular structure, shifts in neural pathway responses. The planetary research team had discovered something profound. Human adaptation wasn't just a theoretical concept. It was a living, breathing reality that had been documented but never fully understood. Back in the current mission's monitoring room, the test subject continued to defy every expectation. The planetary environment outside was nothing short of apocalyptic. Winds carrying particles that could slice through most known materials swept across a landscape that looked more like a vision of absolute destruction than a habitable environment. Radiation levels fluctuated in patterns that would have destroyed any known form of life. Temperature variations could shift by hundreds of degrees in seconds. It was an environment designed to obliterate, to annihilate, to erase any possibility of survival. But survival was precisely what was happening. The test subject's body was engaged in a complex dance with the environment. Cellular structures were not just resisting, they were actively communicating with the hostile surroundings. It was as if human biology had developed a language that could negotiate with the most extreme conditions imaginable. Monitoring systems displayed a symphony of biological responses. Neural pathways were rewiring themselves in real time. Metabolic processes were shifting with a speed and complexity that looked more like intelligent design than random adaptation. Blood cell structures were transforming, creating new ways to transport oxygen and manage cellular stress. Adaptive response entering advanced phase, came the calm voice through the communication system. There was no tension, no fear, just pure, focused observation. The research team watched with a mixture of scientific fascination and something close to reverence. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. This was a demonstration of the most powerful force in the known universe, human potential. Years of research had led to this moment. Decades of understanding human biology, generations of studying survival stories, countless failed attempts to understand the limits of human adaptation, all of it had converged on this single, extraordinary moment. Outside, the planet seemed to rage. Storms of microscopic particles swept across landscapes that looked more like nightmares than actual environments. Radiation levels spiked in patterns that would have obliterated any known form of life. But humans had never been like any known form of life. The test subject continued to adapt, to survive, to transform. Each moment brought new data, new understanding, a new definition of what was possible. It wasn't about creating a superhuman. It was about understanding the incredible potential that had always existed within human genetics. In that moment, watching the live data stream, the research team understood something profound. They weren't just conducting an experiment. They were witnessing the next chapter of human evolution. The planet continued its violent dance of destruction. And human potential continued to write its own rules. The world beyond the research station held secrets that went far deeper than anyone had ever imagined. Deep within a forgotten archive, buried beneath layers of classified documents and abandoned research, lay a collection of stories that would challenge everything humanity understood about its own potential. These weren't just scientific records. They were survival narratives, accounts of individuals who had done the impossible, who had survived scenarios that should have erased their existence entirely. Each document told a story of human resilience that defied logical explanation. One particular file stood out, a classified report from an expedition that had been officially declared a total loss. Decades earlier, a team of researchers had been sent to explore a region so hostile that most believed it would be a one-way mission. The initial reports suggested complete failure. But the final, hidden pages told a different story. The expedition's lead researcher had documented something extraordinary. As their environment became increasingly uninhabitable, the human body began to change. It wasn't a gradual adaptation, but a rapid, almost instantaneous transformation. Cellular structures reconfigured themselves. Metabolic processes shifted with a complexity that looked more like intelligent design than random mutation. Back in the current planetary research station, the test subject represented the culmination of everything these forgotten stories had suggested. The planetary environment continued its relentless assault, a symphony of destruction designed to obliterate any form of life. Winds carried particles that could slice through molecular structures. Radiation levels fluctuated in patterns that would have destroyed any known biological system within moments. Temperatures shifted with such violent unpredictability that no conventional life form could survive. But conventional had never applied to humans. The monitoring systems displayed a ballet of biological responses that challenged every previous understanding of human potential. Cellular structures were not just resisting, they were actively engaging with the environment. It was as if human biology had developed a language that could negotiate with the most extreme conditions imaginable. Neural pathways reconfigured themselves in real time. Blood cell structures transformed, creating new mechanisms for oxygen transportation and cellular protection. The human body was rewriting its own survival code, moment by moment. Advanced adaptive response stabilizing, came the calm voice through the communication system. No fear, no tension, just pure, focused observation. The research team understood they were witnessing something beyond a scientific experiment. This was the next chapter of human evolution unfolding in real time. Generations of survival stories, decades of research, countless failed attempts to understand human potential, all of it had led to this singular moment. Outside, the planet seemed to rage with a fury that would have obliterated any other form of life. Storms of microscopic particles swept across landscapes that looked more like abstract nightmares than actual environments. Radiation levels spiked in patterns that defied every known scientific understanding. But humans had never been limited by what was understood. The test subject continued to adapt, to survive, to transform. Each moment brought new data, a new understanding of what was possible. It wasn't about creating something superhuman. It was about revealing the incredible potential that had always existed within human genetics. A senior researcher leaned closer to the monitoring systems, her hands trembling slightly. Decades of research, countless moments of doubt, years of being told that something was impossible, all of it had converged on this precise moment. They were seeing something unprecedented. The human body was engaged in a complex dialogue with an environment designed to destroy it. And somehow, impossibly, the human was winning. The planetary storms intensified. Conditions that would have instantly killed any known life form became nothing more than background noise to the ongoing biological transformation. It was as if the human body was learning the language of destruction and turning it into a method of survival. In that moment, watching the live data stream, the research team understood a profound truth. They weren't just conducting an experiment. They were witnessing the next stage of human potential. The planet continued its violent dance of destruction. And human resilience continued to write its own rules. No one was laughing now.